You know, so you guys have a sports podcast. I forgot the name of it. What's the name?
Latched
Latched.
podcast. Yeah.
What does that mean? Because I'm always confused about that name.
When we started thinking about names, like we had quite a few. We first started with PM because the boys on our podcast. Shout out to the boys. Moss, Mana, and Brands. We all went to college together. So we're in this one class, and our class was 6 p.m., 7 p.m., and that was our year. And then we've got a bunch of us that, you know, in the chats, the boys just fucking banter and everything. You know, we always, we contemplated starting a podcast or a sports one because, you know, it's always in the chat. Always, everyone knows more than someone else. So we're like, oh, bro, your team's shit. You know, fuck, you guys didn't make top 8, or, you know, it's always gonna be there. So we thought, oh, why don't we be funny and just trying to make something like that? And, you know, hopefully it takes off, which it didn't. Yeah, so that's how it started. And then the name itself, latched, was like, you know, to latch onto something or someone latching onto you. Oh. So we just said latched, you know, hopefully someone can latch onto us.
Oh,
latch.
right.
Not sexually, but...
I was thinking of a sport. What sport has a latch?
Yeah. And there was none. And we did have a touch team too. I played a lot of touch when we were younger, and we started a team off with, it's called the Latched Touch Team, a club. It's kind of died down because my brother, who's moved over to Aussie, used to run a small, or not a small, but a little touch club out south with I think it was from under 8s, under 10s, and I just went up to under 14s, I think, before they moved over. But yeah, it was a club. We started off a men's touch team a while back, and we just used their name to transfer it over.
Yeah.
And
makes sense.
Yeah. And plus, like, you try and think of like these cool names, and you're never gonna find a cool name, and then you get like lashing, and like, I didn't even know if it's a cool name, bro. You know? I don't even know if the boys liked it, but I just put it out to the boys, and the boys are happy to run with it.
Yeah, that's the hardest part, though. I'm trying to figure out a name.
Yeah. Even starting a podcast again, you know, like
even the picture, what the logo is gonna be, and all that.
And bro, if you look at ours, man, I'm like changing it nearly every month. You're like, oh, this looks nice, you know. Oh, I like this design. You know, you're trying to find something that's unique, the logo to your pod, but.
I remember when I was designing our rugby union podcast, the Counter Ruck.
Yeah.
So what I did was I looked up terms in rugby union.
Oh, yes.
Looked at all the terms, everything.
Yeah.
From
that's
ref,
clever.
From
that's
the
good.
ref to all the moves to everything, the positions.
Yeah.
Everything that's got to do with rugby union. I just looked at all the words and the Counter Ruck. Counter Ruck, counter talking, back and forth, banter.
Makes sense, bro. It makes sense.
That's it. The Counter Ruck. I better get it before no one else. So what I do is I jump on Google or jump on Spotify and search for the Counter Ruck podcast. Doesn't come up. Oh yeah, sweet. Go on some other platforms, search for it. The Counter Ruck podcast doesn't come up. Oh yeah, sweet. Then I got it because there were some names that I figured out. I go on Spotify and search for that name, and heaps come up. So I was like, nah, it can't be that name. You know, so. It's one of the tricks.
Well, that was my.
Is that funny?
Is it?
Technical difficulties we have on the podcast now and then.
I think it's just me. It just follows me, all these sort of stuff, because it happens a lot on my podcast.
You know why? Because you haven't got your matrix chair.
Oh,
where's the matrix chair? Is that?
Oh, very nice. Bro, how that came across was I was watching this podcast. Who was it? Oh, The Fighter and the Kid. Yeah. I saw them sitting on these chairs. Oh, I like that chair.
And Brendan Shaw.
And Kellen. Yeah,
Kellen.
Brian, I just saw
Brian Kellen.
Yeah. I just saw their podcast, and I like the setting of them sitting in this nice chair, wingback chair. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll have a look at it. I'll look it up on Trade Me. That was it. So I just found it. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. That was the only one that was affordable. I would have liked a more darker color because it just makes me look. Doesn't make me look nice, but I got that anyway, bro. Just nice, comfortable chair which sits in the corner and it gathers all the clothes when I'm not sitting in it. So,
Oh, you gotta have these things,
Yeah.
to make it unique. Make the podcast look.
Bro, going back to the Latched podcast.
Yeah.
There's when we thought about the name, it's like, boys, hey, sweet, bro, that's all good. Then I googled it. I was like, oh yeah, and what came up was if you Google it, if you're watching or listening to this, Google Latched podcast, it'll come up with I think Latched Mama or something. Latched Mama. So it's about a lady talking about breastfeeding, latching on.
Oh, yeah.
So that was it, bro. And I was so stupid that I didn't Google it beforehand. I Googled it after because you check your first podcast out, and then the boys are like, "Oh, where do you find your thing?" And I was like, "Oh, I just type in Latched podcast, it'll come up." And Latched podcast came up as Latched Mama or something, and like, "Hey, we only see this lady. What's going on?" There? I was like, "Oh, fuck!" So we had to just run with it. You make these decisions, and that's it.
You can change it.
Yeah. I think the boys are all good with it. Yeah, I was just trying to find that name. I think it was Latched something. Latched. Sorry guys. Shouldn't be doing this, but I'll see if Latched Mama podcast. So if you type in Latched podcast, it'll come up as Latched Mama, and that's not us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think because whoever runs that podcast, the lady that runs it, bro, she's got so many followers. So when you have that content or that amount of reach, and you have only 5 people watching or listening to our podcast, it's not going to make it anywhere in the search list.
But yeah, I enjoy listening to you guys on the sports one because it's like something different.
Yeah,
it's your guys' point of view, and I like that.
Yeah. Oh, bro, it's so good because we don't all agree on like one thing, and that's what I think.
And you support different teams.
Yeah,
which is good too,
bro. And even to this day, the boys still give like the Blues shit, about the finals and how we have too many Blues players in the All Blacks. I was like, hey, it is what it is, right? We're the best, second best. Because you support the Chiefs, eh? No. You Blues, eh? Blues, yeah.
Blues.
Who supports the Chiefs?
Roger.
Oh yeah. Listening to your guys, especially the sports, the rugby podcast. It's so good to hear. People's own like their opinion on how the game went, and every time throughout the Super.